Let us pray. Lord, renew us with your strength, focus us in our deliberations, challenge us in our service of the people of this great province and country. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills.
Member for Calgary-McCall.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill 16, which is the Real Estate Agents Licensing Act of 1990. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of this bill, in the main, is to create a real estate foundation to promote and undertake education, law reform, and research, and other projects and activities in respect of the real estate industry and the public. The legislation also enables the Alberta Real Estate Association to establish and administer an errors and omissions insurance or indemnity plan for realtors, expands the licensing provisions to include branch offices of real estate agencies, and provides for greater consumer protection by imposing additional standards respecting the handling of clients' monies, and creates new disciplinary options for the superintendent of real estate when realtors contravene the legislation or carry on their business contrary to the public interest. Finally, a number of housekeeping and minor improvements to the statute are proposed.
The honourable member for Calgary-McCall has moved first reading of Bill 16, Real Estate Agents Licensing Amendment Act 1990. Those members in favour of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 16, Real Estate Agents Licensing Amendment Act 1990, introduced by the honourable member, Mr. Nelson, is now read a first time.
Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Bill number 16, Real Estate Agents Licensing Amendment Act 1990, be placed on the order paper under Government Bills and Orders.
Having heard the motion by the Government House Leader, those in favour please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Tabling returns and reports.
Member for Grand Prairie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Northern Alberta Development Council takes pleasure in filing with the Assembly copies of a report entitled Opportunities for Healthcare Professionals in Northern Alberta.
Technology, Research and Telecommunications.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to table the 1989 annual report for the Alberta Research Council.
Introduction of special guests.
Member for Edmonton-Avonmore, followed by Cypress Redcliffe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to members of this Assembly 10 students from the Heritage School, which is in the constituency of Edmonton-Avonmore. They are accompanied by their teacher, Mr. Haraluk, and their aide, a program aide, Jane Woodbury. I would ask that they rise. They are sitting in the public gallery now and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Cypress Redcliffe.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I'd like to introduce 34 students from Senator Gershaw High School in Bow Island. Thank you. It's not very often I get this pleasure, but for 2 weeks in a row Friday, this will probably won't happen for another couple of years. The students are accompanied by the principal, Bob Thompson, who's filling in as a bus driver, by parents, Arlene Jerfy, Dee Matthews, and Carol Clody. I would ask you to rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Drayton Valley.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure this morning to introduce to you and through you to this Assembly 27 students from the Kalmar School, and they're accompanied today by Carol Hayduck and Henry Schmolke. I believe they're sitting in the members gallery, and I would ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome of this House.
Edmonton Mill Woods.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to introduce to you and the other members of the House this morning some 29 bright young students from Wineloss Elementary School in the constituency of Edmonton Mill Woods. They're accompanied by their teacher, Mrs. Lucille Dupuis, and by parent, Mrs. Wendy Muth. I'd ask them to rise now in the members' gallery and receive our very warm welcome.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, to the taxing treasurer. Mr. Speaker, last night the treasurer tried to take Albertans for a ride. I don't think anybody was surprised at the desperate attempt to paint a rosy fiscal picture due to their mismanagement, Mr. Speaker. But it's time that Albertans got a little more honesty from this treasurer. Mr. Speaker, what the treasurer is doing is hiding the truth from Albertans, and he knows it, vastly overrated how much revenue we're going to have in this next year, Mr. Speaker. We're not going to get $250 million from the feds. Natural gas prices are falling. The oil industry says he's looking for a miracle in oil prices. Mr. Speaker, the list goes on. My question, though, specifically in one of the areas, Mr. Speaker, last year he said we were going to get $195 million from the stabilization plan from the feds, and we only got $75 million. Only $120 million out for this treasurer, Mr. Speaker. My question is, why would anyone believe this treasurer when he says we're going to get $250 million from the feds this year?
Mr. Speaker, because it's an amount due to Albertans by the federal government, and this government is determined to collect those dollars. It's due to us, Mr. Speaker. It's ours, and it's going to be paid. That's why it's in the budget. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition over the past week or so has been talking about joint efforts, working together to take on some of these issues. Now, here's one, Mr. Speaker, where I would think the Leader of the Opposition would be up saying, can I help you at all, Mr. Treasurer? Can I help the government get its just due from the province, from the federal government? That's the kind of response I'd like, Mr. Speaker. Instead, we get this, well, do you think you're going to get it, Dick, kind of question. Well, that's not the way this government operates, Mr. Speaker. Let me make it very clear. Let me make it very clear, Mr. Speaker, that this amount is due to the province of Alberta. It's a matter of law. The established program financing spells out very clearly that stabilization is payable to the government of Alberta if, in fact, it's had a sharp change in its economic foundation, as we saw in '86. The deadline for payment is December of 1990, and therefore it's appropriate to have that money put in our budget, and it will be due to this province. Now, Mr. Speaker, I agree that the federal government has been hesitant to get to the table. We believe we can get them to the table and negotiate, but failing that, Mr. Speaker, we'll do everything we can to ensure that that payment is made. This province...
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Treasurer. We got a few more.
Mr. Speaker, what we're talking about is the treasurer cooking the books, and he knows darn well that they're probably not going to get it this year, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, I notice here in another area that we have this nice little book about the GST, and I have read it, and I've used it, Mr. Speaker, Protecting Alberta's Future, that came from this treasurer. But in there, they say because of the GST that's coming in the next year, that thousands of jobs will be lost, Mr. Speaker. At the same time in the budget, he says, oh, the economy's booming, Mr. Speaker. And there's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars coming in from taxes, new jobs. You can't have it both ways, Mr. Speaker. Which is it? Is the GST going to cost jobs, or are we going to have all this tax revenue he's talking about?
Mr. Speaker, I think the leader's getting warmed up for his budget speech in a few minutes. I'll be glad to hear more details of his thesis. Mr. Speaker, the GST, should it come on stream, and we'll continue our opposition, obviously, as vigorously as possible, should it come on stream in the first quarter of '91, the economy is in such a strong course right now that we will rebound through the first quarter. We still stand by our position that over the 3-year period after implementation, there could well be difficulties for our province. That's been accommodated, Mr. Speaker, in the way in which we presented our plan over the next 3 to 4 year period. But in 1990-91 fiscal year, Mr. Speaker, the outline we have given is a fair outline, is as good as you can get with respect to the information looking out, and we think this economy is on a strong, buoyant, bullish path. We're in favor, Alberta. We think Alberta is the place to be in the 90s, and this plan confirms that, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, it's the only treasurer I can know that can talk on both sides of his face. The jesting is bad, but they can overcome at one time, depending what the message is, Mr. Speaker. But the last one, where he's vastly overrated the revenues, according to everybody else, but everybody else is always wrong except this treasurer, even though he's never been correct yet in his projections, Mr. Speaker, is the oil industry says in both cases, natural gas and the oil prices, that he's vastly overrated it. How is it, Mr. Speaker, that he has done this? Isn't it clearly to overrate and put a rosy picture on Alberta's finances so he wouldn't tell the truth to Alberta? That's what he's doing.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, one of the advantages of having Hansard, of course, is we can go back and see what was said last year. I just happened to have June 12, 1989. Mr. Martin raises in the Assembly. The Minister of Energy has also checked the record. That's right. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker. I'm always make that oversight. Mr. Speaker, on June the 12th, 1989, Mr. Martin, who I'm quoting here, the Leader of the Opposition, said, "I would suggest he's wildly optimistic about oil prices. He's got his rose-colored glasses on." Now, members will remember, Mr. Speaker, that last year we included in our oil price forecast a price of $19 U.S. for West Texas Intermediate. I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that today, Mr. Speaker, the price of oil is trading at $20.26 U.S. The average price, Mr. Speaker, the average price for WTI oil over the past year has been $20.42 U.S. Now, I know, Mr. Speaker, that the member of Norwood does not like us to quote his own words, because you talk about being wrong. You talk about being wrong, Mr. Speaker. He's wrong in neon lights, Mr. Speaker. He also goes on. Now, here's a curious forecast, Mr. Speaker. He goes on to predict the price of oil will go to $10 in 1989, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't want to form a budget around his forecast, I'll tell you. Mr. Speaker, our price, let me just speak, Mr. Speaker, about the reason for the forecast of $21 U.S. Now, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the supply-demand numbers, we studied these very carefully over the past three months. The assistance from my colleague, the Minister of Energy, the two departments have worked very carefully in analyzing oil markets around the world. It is clear, Mr. Speaker, that oil in production is dropping off, both in Russia and in the United States and in Alberta, as we have shown, and demand is increasing, Mr. Speaker, worldwide. OPEC itself is running just below its production capacity, which means that we can expect at least, Mr. Speaker, a nominal increase in the price of oil over last year's average. Now, if you expect the price of oil to increase by 5% over today's price of $20.42 average, that comes about $21.50, Mr. Speaker, just on a nominal basis, without any real price changes. So, Mr. Speaker, you can see that, in fact, this $21 price of oil is a realistic price. It's not the doom and gloom scenario that the member from across the way has, and I suggest he should get his...
Thank you.
The reality is, Mr. Speaker, you're 336 million wrong last year and over $1 billion the year before, Mr. Speaker. That's not performance. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to go to the Minister of Health, because the Treasurer is frankly hopeless, we know that. Maybe we'll get some answers from the Minister of Health, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this taxing budget showed last night that this government's rhetoric about the family is nothing but rhetoric, Mr. Speaker. Because last night's budget was a major attack on health care for Albertans. Instead of joining 8 other provinces which have abolished health care taxes, this government has chosen to hike up tax fees for health care premiums, nursing homes, the tax for the sick and elderly, long-term care, blue coverage, I could go on. It's a very regressive form of taxation, Mr. Speaker. In the case of health care taxes, a 16% increase will bring the total increase from June 1987 to 64%, Mr. Speaker, going from $336 a year to $552 a year for a family, Mr. Speaker. One step closer to a two-tiered health care system. My question is a very simple one to the Minister of Health. Where were you? Where were you when this treasurer was hiking up health taxes yet again?
Well, Mr. Speaker, you know, health in this province is a lot more than money, but it costs a lot of money to run our health system. And last night we presented a budget to Albertans which shows that we will be spending on health in Alberta $3.8 billion in 1991. It's our view that the premiums are an appropriate mechanism because, in fact, if we were to move to a non-premium system that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is suggesting, of course we would start taxing senior citizens. And in our view, senior citizens should be exempt from health care premiums, and they are. In fact, 266,000 senior citizens and their dependents are exempt from health care. In addition, Mr. Speaker, this budget provides that we will provide either a partial or a full subsidy to an additional 250,000 Albertans to give them a partial subsidy on the premium. In fact, our commitment to the family is sound, and in fact, we believe that Albertans see this as a reasonable request for the beautiful and precious health system that we have in this province.
Mr. Speaker, from a Minister of Health to say that this is appropriate, she knows full well it's a regressive tax, Mr. Speaker. It doesn't matter whether you make $20,000 or $200,000, you're paying the same, and that's unfair, Mr. Speaker. My question is to this minister, how could a Minister of Health who says that she cares about the family, average families, accept this regressive tax if she really does care about the health of Alberta families?
Speaker, this is not a tax, and nor is it regressive. This is a health care insurance plan. Right. And the issue of insurance brings with it the issue of paying premiums. And we believe that an increase of $3.25 for those who are covered for single coverage, with coverage which is unequaled in the world with respect to what can access for that additional $3.25 a month for singles, we do believe it's appropriate and we will stand by it.
I must say, Mr. Speaker, that this is a big disappointment, this minister, to all Albertans. They expected more, Mr. Speaker. They expected more. And I want to ask this minister again, even at this late date, will the minister finally stand up for families and tell this provincial treasurer over here, taxing Dick, that enough is enough and that there will be no more regressive taxes, and she will fight and fight to take these ones off, but there will be no more in the future, Mr. Speaker. Will she do that?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the increase in the premiums are appropriate. I've stated that before, and I will state it again. We want to look at what, for example, our province to the west of us, British Columbia, is charging for health care premiums. It is charging significantly more than Alberta. Another important part of the budget announcement last night was that we will now link the premium increases for those who pay premiums for basic health services up to a level of 50% of the cost of delivering health services to those people in our province. Right now, before there's shock and appall expressed in the House, let me tell Albertans and members of the House that we are at about a 40% of those increases, and over the next 3 years we will phase in an increase which will take the current $19.75 per month up to under $30 a month for single care coverage. I don't think that's too much to ask of Albertans, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, 1 year ago, the Premier told Albertans that there would be no taxes, no tax increases, income taxes. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the budget increased taxes and charges on Albertans by some $480 million. There's no magic here. Everybody knows that Albertans get
the bill in the end, that businesses, small businesses who have to pay $30 million in extra taxes, that these monies are paid by Albertans in the end. The budget also levies direct charges of utility charges in the vicinity of $102 per year, health care charges of $120 per year, and fuel taxes of about $35 per year on the average Alberta family, total of about $250 per year. How can the Premier in clear conscience continue to say that there are no tax increases for Albertans?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I've dealt with this in the House before and with the honourable member to assure him that there are no increases in income taxes in Alberta. Personal income tax. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, they are the lowest income taxes, personal income taxes in Canada, by a substantial measure. There is no retail sales tax, and we're going to keep them that way. Mr. Speaker, we are in the 89-90 year right now. Last year, we cut income taxes. That's the way income taxes went in Alberta. And Mr. Speaker, what we have done this year is talked to Albertans, gone throughout our province, and what they have said is let's all share in reducing the deficit. Now, there's no magic pot of money somewhere that we take it and reduce the deficit. It's all of us together working to reduce the deficit, and it's $1 billion cut in the deficit, and I'm sorry, they just don't like it, but we're on plan, and we're going on to a balanced budget whether they like it or not.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to address the issue of $1 billion reduction in the deficit. In 4 out of the last 5 budgets, the provincial treasurer has grossly predicted the government deficits by an average of over 90%. An average of over 90%. Last year alone, the treasurer had to confess yesterday that he was some $300 million out, but that didn't even take into account the bookkeeping changes that he made a year earlier. How can the treasurer how will the treasurer assure Albertans that a clear, precise plan is put into place that's a real plan to get rid of the huge deficit that Alberta now has?
Mr. Speaker, I think Albertans are very conscious that there are 2 sides to every equation, particularly when you deal with the deficit. And Albertans are very aware that since '86, this province has gone through a very difficult course, particularly because the world price of oil has changed dramatically, and that's an external fact that Albertans can't control. And so what this government has done is to plan very soundly on those areas that it can control, and judiciously and wisely move on a longer-term plan to a balanced budget. Mr. Speaker, in 1986, the price of oil dropped below double-digit levels. And for the first time last year, Mr. Speaker, we had some predictability coming back into the oil price itself. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, we found that the strong economy in this province, new investment, large number of jobs has generated that kind of income, that revenue predictability on the tax side that is necessary for any budget to be planned. And Mr. Speaker, contrary to the whimsy of the opposition leader, what we have done has been a very gradual, progressive step towards the balanced budget. And the facts are being revealed, Mr. Speaker, daily. Now, I want to draw the attention of the leader of the Liberal Party to this very important document, Alberta at a Glance, which is part of the budget process. And there's a nice graph there, Mr. Speaker. It shows precisely how we're going to get to that deficit. Now, it shows clearly that by 91-92, we're essentially on course. For the first time, Mr. Speaker, in the last 4 years, we've had more predictable revenue. Diversification is taking place. We're moving away from heavy dependency on oil and gas, vital as it is. But in fact, diversification is coming to this province, and it's showing up in the terms of our revenues. Now, Mr. Speaker, we are on course. This is a reasonable budget, and it does have greater predictability, the oil and gas side in particular, and the other revenue side of taxation is more sure than ever before, Mr. Speaker. It's a very positive.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, the
projection by the Treasurer is that there will be a 3% increase in the GDP of the province. In fact, because of high interest rates and poor exchange rates, there is a slowdown believed. Economists believe that there is a slowdown and that Canada is moving closer towards a recession, and that the GDP should be closer to something around 1.5, below 2%. This inflation at 3% has the tendency or projects revenues that are far greater than will properly accrue to the province of Alberta. How can the Treasurer continue to paint the Leader of the Opposition's words, these rosy pictures, when the Treasurer has had such a poor record in the past on deficits?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me assure you that this government is bullish on Alberta. We believe that the economy is strong, Mr. Speaker. We have seen the fundamental numbers. Now, I know the leader of the Liberal Party doesn't like it. He doesn't like to see people at work. To one side of his mouth, he says unemployment's going to go up. You're going to have a low economic growth. We don't believe that, Mr. Speaker. We don't believe that for a minute. We think this province is strong. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, we think that the trends over the 1991 period are going to reinforce our plan. More investment coming to this province, in-migration taking place, Mr. Speaker, and the lowest tax regime of any province in Canada is going to attract investment. We think the forecast on economic growth is very strong, Mr. Speaker, and contrary to slowdown in other parts of Canada, we think our province will boom through that 2% number he's using. 3% is a modest projection, Mr. Speaker.
Drumheller, followed by Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Premier. Can the Premier advise the Assembly of his reaction to the constitutional initiatives announced by the Prime Minister last night and what the response of our government will be?
Mr. Speaker, as I've said in the House in response to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, that in the coming weeks and months I think there will be a great deal of pressure and challenge on leaders in this country. And I've been waiting to see the Prime Minister move in this area because, as our Prime Minister, he does set the tone and direction when we are dealing with challenges like constitutional reform. I felt that last night he moved with the right type of tone, a generosity of spirit, asking Canadians to pull together to deal with this constitutional matter. And I believe that while the move that Premier McKenna made and the subsequent moves by the Prime Minister are not going to solve our problem, they are building blocks towards solving the problem. It gives us a chance, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that all leaders, all First Ministers, and people in this legislature will continue to keep their eye on the need to unify this country so that we can be a great nation, not concentrate on those things that could cause disunity and pull us apart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In view of the apparent unyielding attitude of Mr. Bourassa in this matter, can the Premier say if the government of Quebec is presently involved in any discussions that could end the current impasse?
Mr. Speaker, there have been discussions with most governments. I spoke to the Prime Minister yesterday. I have spoken to Premier Bourassa just recently. I know the pressures that he faces. I know the difficult situation that other premiers have in terms of dealing with constitutional reform. One of the things I stressed to Premier Bourassa and to the Prime Minister yesterday is that Senate reform is a key part of any additional indication of going the extra mile, of tolerance and understanding. And I urged him that he have the matter of Senate reform in his comments last night, and I'm glad he did. But I also made it clear to him and to Premier Bourassa that Albertans are looking for more tangible evidence on Senate reform if we are now moving into what we consider to be the second stage or companion resolution. And I made sure the Prime Minister knows how strongly we feel that Senate reform is the key to a stronger Canada, and that we want Mr. Waters appointed to the Senate, because the people of Alberta have asked that that be done.
Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For all this government's posturing and supposedly opposing the federal government's GST, when it comes right down to the crunch of raising revenues, this government, Mr. Speaker, copies and apes their conservative cousins in Ottawa. Whether it be fuel tax, nursing home fees, health care premiums, the list goes on, motor vehicle fees, they're all flat and regressive levies on ordinary Albertans, just as the GST is a flat and regressive tax. To the provincial treasurer, Mr. Speaker, would he now admit that when it comes to revenue grabs, he's no different from his counterpart, Michael Wilson, in that he as well as chooses to raise revenues using these regressive flat sources?
Well, I must certainly disagree with the member from Mountain View. It is clear that all governments must use some form of taxation to generate revenue to pay for the first-rate services which Albertans have come to expect, and Alberta has in place a modest array of taxes. Let me say, Mr. Speaker, that there is only one clear answer to this predicament. First of all, if there is any regressivity in the tax, as other colleagues along here have spoken to already this morning, that in fact we have adopted targeted policies which remove the regressivity. That is to say, they're either exempt from the taxes or there's a subsidy relationship which based on income which allows them to avoid the tax. And across a variety of areas, Mr. Speaker, we have done that. In the case of Medicare premiums, the minister has already indicated, for example, that seniors are exempt. In a variety of other areas, Mr. Speaker, the taxes go around those people who have low income. On our income tax side, for example, 500,000 Albertans are either reduced or exempt from personal income taxes because of our targeted tax exemption regime. There's one easy solution to this, Mr. Speaker, and Albertans understand it very carefully. Alberta has the lowest personal income tax in Canada. Alberta has no retail sales tax, Mr. Speaker, and overall, the tax regime in Alberta is the lowest in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the total impact of the increases announced in his budget last night will be somewhere around $300 to $400 per person, and they'll hit ordinary Albertans regardless of their incomes. In fact, 5 of the increases would equate to an 8.5% increase in personal income taxes over last year's personal income tax take. When will the provincial treasurer stop his disguised attack on Alberta's middle class and on Alberta's poor and start restoring fairness to our tax system?
Right on.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I've already indicated to you how this government, on an even-handed basis, deals with low-income Albertans. There's not many of them, Mr. Speaker, and most of Albertans are so-called middle class. I don't look at that kind of distinction that the Socialist Party across the way talks about. I think all Albertans are Albertans, and we try to be fair and even-handed. What we have done on these taxes, Mr. Speaker, the modest increases which you saw this yesterday, is to ask all Albertans to join together to take on this question of the deficit. And all Albertans, Mr. Speaker, have been asked to contribute just a bit more to balance the budget. Because you know why, Mr. Speaker? Because Albertans want to get this balanced budget in place. They want to cut the deficit, as we have done, by $1 billion last night, Mr. Speaker. They're supportive of this plan, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to make it work for Albertans.
Calgary Buffalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The treasurer, as others have noted, has continued his attack on low and average income Albertans by imposing $300 million of regressive personal taxes in his budget. Now, one increase that's well disguised in his budget is the $95 million increase in utility fees for Albertans, about $100 per household, through cutting in the rebate of provincial taxes. Now, at the same time as the provincial treasurer is crowing and whining about the iniquity of the federal and goods and services tax, he's at the same time imposing the equivalent of a consumption tax on every household in this province. And I'm wondering whether the treasurer is prepared to confirm that there will be a $95 increase in utility bills to Albertans as a result of his budget.
Well, Mr. Speaker, first of all, the member again is making some half-truth statements. I notice he's reading a prepared speech, so I expect I should have a prepared answer. But nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, let me make it very clear. Alberta is, as a matter of fact, Alberta is the only province, Mr. Speaker, where the federal corporate taxes on utilities is rebated to utility consumers. All other provinces capture the federal tax for themselves, Mr. Speaker. What we have done here, Mr. Speaker, at a time when utility rates are probably low or not increasing very rapidly, is ask again that businesses, individuals, assume somewhat the cost of this deficit which we're fighting. And we think it's a reasonable approach to ask Albertans on a modest way to pay just a bit more on their utility bill to take on this deficit battle. Alberta, Mr. Speaker, is the only province, I repeat again, where the federal tax on corporations is rebated to the consumer. We're just asking Albertans to pay just a bit more to carry the cost of the deficit and to pay a bit more in utilities to absorb this responsibility. It's not going to be a large impact. We don't think rates are going to increase to the level the member of Buffalo suggests. In fact, it's far below what he suggests.
So the answer is yes, and I'm wondering whether the provincial treasurer can tell us how he justifies this $95 million regressive tax on all Albertans, regardless of ability to pay, without consideration for low-income Albertans, and without that targeting that he just bragged about a few moments ago.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not too sure what the member is asking or saying, which is not unusual, by the way. Mr. Speaker, let's remember that utility rates are set by an independent quasi-judicial board. They examine the kinds of rate structure which are necessary given the costs of operation, and that board will set the rates. We expect that the rates will be modest through this period. The Minister response may want to supplement what I'm saying. But we think at this point, Mr. Speaker, the impact on individual Albertans will not be all that much. As to its regressivity, Mr. Speaker, let me point out that in particular senior citizens, which I talked about earlier as a targeted group, we provide to senior citizens a $100 a year rebate on their utility costs across the board without any means test, and if you're a senior citizen, you qualify for it. So the regressivity on that side, Mr. Speaker, is not there. It just isn't there, Mr. Speaker. Moreover, the member is misleading the House as well with respect to the rate impact.
Could answer the specific question for the member for Calgary-Buffalo. The impact on the utility bills for all utility customers will be 4.5% across the board. Albertans pay $1.5 billion in utilities bills, Mr. Speaker, and we believe that Albertans are willing to share in our drive for a balanced budget, and 4.5% is not an unreasonable request.
Calgary, Fish Creek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question this morning is to the Minister of Transportation. The Mayor of Calgary in recent months has been complaining that our transportation capital funding programs for such capital needs as road construction are too inflexible, and that the Minister should loosen the rules so that those capital dollars can in fact be rerouted to other areas. Would the Minister explain to the Assembly today why he's not in fact prepared to give to Mayor Doer that much-needed funding flexibility?
Well, Mr. Speaker, all of the cities in the province of Alberta receive a basic capital grant, $65 per capita, and they can use that for any capital program that they wish. And in the discussion that I had with the mayor recently, one of the issues was whether they could use it to purchase buses. That has always been in place. The mayor understands that, and the media hasn't at this point in time, because there's a number of articles suggested that we should change that. It's not there to be changed. It's been an eligibility aspect of the program for a number of years now. So in that respect, on that particular issue, they are eligible, and my understanding is they're looking at the purchase of some buses, I believe in the 1991 year, late 1990, 1991, and if there was an application made by the City of Calgary or any of the cities that had buses or LRT coaches, they would be eligible.
I wonder, Mr. Speaker, if I could direct the supplementary perhaps to the provincial treasurer, and I welcome the answer from the Minister of Transportation. But what we have in Calgary, and I suspect in other cities, that we get near the end of the fiscal year, and there may be some funds that are excess or surplus to their needs in that particular account. And what they'd like to do is be able to reroute those to areas of real need rather than spend where it doesn't need to be spent. would the provincial treasurer be prepared to consider extending to our major city mayors in particular that kind of additional flexibility so we could get dollars spent exactly where they're needed, not necessarily where we in the province think they have to be spent?
Mr. Speaker, let me say that this province, this government, over the course of the last 10 years or so, has moved essentially in the direction the member from Fish Creek suggests. That is, provide to elected representatives at the municipal level the right to spend the money in unconditional ways. That is, in areas without strings attached to it. And you saw 2 years ago the then Minister of Municipal Affairs form the partnership arrangement with the local authorities, allowing them to have more flexibility in directing the funds. And I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, we're not out there policing the judgment of local politicians. We think they serve the same constituency, they have the same responsibility, and to date, they proved themselves as good manager. I know my colleague, the Minister of Transportation, may want to add more details as to that so-called year-end bulge, but on a general nature, that's how we've handled those transfers, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, a couple of years ago, when we entered into the new three-year program for the cities, one of the issues that we discussed with all of the municipal authorities was sitting down with them in advance and then getting an idea what it is they would be applying for, and that would be what we approached the provincial treasurer for. We would get away from the previous method where we provided the total money. I believe it came to around $50,000 or $50 million. I would present a check to the City of Calgary. It would go into the bank. They would use some of it would carry over, and in order to get a better hold on that, we, in cooperation with the municipal authorities, moved to this method that I talked about just a moment ago, where in fact, if they recognized that their 25% was such, they would apply for that much money plus the 75% from us, and that would be what they would be eligible for, and that's what we would apply to the provincial treasurer for. It's cleaner, it's on the table, it's better for everybody.
Thank you. Edmonton Kingsway.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's no wonder that the Leader of the Official Opposition questioned the validity of the Treasurer's revenue projections for the coming fiscal year. In the last 4 years, the Treasurer has miscalculated the combined deficit by 48%, 45%, 127%, and 22% respectively. The truth is that either the Treasurer just doesn't have a clear picture of the province's finances, or else he insists on reworking the books to serve this government's political needs. Mr. Speaker, why should Albertans believe the Treasurer when he claims that the deficit will be under $1 billion this year, when last year he racked up a $2 billion consolidated deficit, and he hasn't proven to be straight once in the 4 years since he's been Treasurer?
There must be a new sense of cooperation among the two Liberal and the NDP party here. Mr. Speaker, I've tried to deal with that question already. I'd be glad to put on the table just what it is, how our plan works. For the benefit of the member, we've also actually provided visual displays, so it'll be easier for you to understand.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the only thing going down is the Tory fortunes, not the deficit. Obviously, the way the Treasurer is reporting the province's deficit, he's trying to confuse Albertans and keep them in the real financial books in secret.
I'm sure you're confused.
Well, no matter how the Treasurer twists and turns it, the fact is that the consolidated deficit will be over $1 billion this coming fiscal year, and the accumulated debt will be $11 billion, or a little more than that. Will the Treasurer admit that given that his revenue projections are inflated, that he will need drastic cuts in programs to people, or to sell off this province's assets, like AGT, to meet his 1992 balanced budget deadline?
Well, Mr. Speaker, where do I start? Let me think here. Mr. Speaker, let me indicate to you that the messages are very clear to Albertans, and Albertans will be able to understand them fully over the course of the next few days. Let me just recite them for you, Mr. Speaker, that first of all, the deficit this year is cut by $1 billion. Mr. Speaker, Albertans don't mistake that message. They know that we're slashing the deficit, that we're moving cautiously and carefully to that balanced budget by 91-92, and we're not doing it by reducing those fundamental costs, education and health. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, there's enrichments in those programs, and we have maintained that over the past 5-year period. Remembering full well, Mr. Speaker, remembering full well that a large portion of our budget is transfers to local authorities, as the member from Fish Creek just pointed out, extremely important. Mr. Speaker, as well, the member points out... Yeah, come on.
Ask the question and he keeps babbling.
Mr. Speaker, our estimates here, both on revenues, and I've indicated already, we have more predictability on revenues, is, I think, a fair prediction. We have done our best on the expenditure side. Our expenditures have been controlled to expand only by 1.8% on average since 85-86. And that's a very good message, Mr. Speaker. And we know we can balance the budget by 91-92 without unloading additional personal income taxes on Albertans. But the member does touch an interesting note here. This budget does not reflect anything on privatization. Now, I know that they expected us to say we're going to solve the deficit problem by privatization. Guess what? Nothing in this budget about privatization. We're doing this on an even-handed and fair basis, using the management plan that we initiated in 85-86, Mr. Speaker. I would note, Mr. Speaker, that if we, should we generate $1 from the sale of some particular asset, that's pure surplus, Mr. Speaker, pure surplus to us. But this budget does not call for any privatization.
Thank you. Edmonton. Sounds like we have a new candidate for Speaker in the House. Member for Edmonton Centre, followed by Edmonton Gold Barn. Let's pick up the pace a bit, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last night's budget for acute care hospitals gives only one page of some very deceptive information about the expenditure of $1.8 billion for hospitals in the province. And worse, in comparison to last year's figure, this year they actually cut the rate of increase to hospitals by over 4%. Now, given that the United Nurses of Alberta and the Alberta Hospital Association have successfully completed a 19% increase for nurses over the next 2 years, when will the Minister of Health stop burying her head in the sand and tell the provincial treasurer over here that the hospital boards this year will need another $73 million just to pay for the nurses' increase for the negotiated settlement?
Well, Mr. Speaker, this is an odd question coming from the party that purports to respect labor negotiations.
Well, they're pretty odd.
Which are ongoing. We've got two equal parties that have got to the point where one of those parties can recommend to its members that there be a settlement. And I have to await, as Minister of Health, the results of that vote, and I will await the results of that vote. And as I've said publicly on many occasions, the government will review any negotiated settlement that's presented to us. To this point, it hasn't. Let me answer one other question that was thrown in there, and I'll be happy to be dealing with the honourable member during my estimates. In the area of acute care in the budget, $100 million is provided, which is part of a $178 million increase that's referred to in the budget. $50 million of that will go to the 3% grant increases on base budgets for hospitals, and $50 million will go for general activity increases in acute care hospitals. I don't know what the honourable member is talking about.
No, does he,
Speaker, what I'm talking about is that even last year, without the nurses' settlement, they increased it by 11%. This year, it's only 5.9%. Now, what's going to happen? We know they've misled Albertans again. What's going to happen is that we'll have either hospital care funding by special warrant, or closed beds, or hospitals deficits, or increased waiting lists for patients throughout the province, all to help deficit Dick cook the books like last night. So I want to ask this minister why she did not lay on the table for all Albertans before these cookbooks came out last night what she is expecting out of this negotiated settlement, even a close ballpark figure. Isn't it $73 million this year? And why she helped instead the treasurer cook the books just to make them look good.
Well, Mr. Speaker, no. No, he's not. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. There's been a misunderstanding, obviously, on the part of the honourable member. This year, we increased the global budgets to hospitals by over 7% in order that each hospital could have at least a 5% grant increase. Now, if we move into the year referred to by the provincial treasurer when he read out his budget last night, those increases will be 3% on base budgets and then increases for operating. There have been no special warrants provided in 1989-90 for the issues that the honourable member indicates. It's simply not true.
Edmonton Gold Bar. Edmonton Gold Bar. Time for question period has expired. However, the chair had recognized Edmonton Gold Bar. Might we have unanimous consent for this series of questions? Opposed? Carried. Edmonton Gold Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the increase yesterday to health care premiums proves to me that this government is operating in terms of an ideology, and they're not really reflecting in any way the wishes of Albertans. We see this in terms, Mr. Speaker, of the Heinemann report and this parallel move by the government. The people of Alberta have never said they want to go in this direction. This is an Americanizing, a move towards two-tier health care in Alberta. Mr. Speaker, everyone else in Canada is going another way regarding health care. We're going in our own toward a Thatcher-style head tax that penalizes the people who can least afford it. Mr. Speaker, my question to the minister is, who on earth advised this move? What's it based on beside a conservative mindset that blames people for being sick and a grab for money? What's it based on?
Well, Mr. Speaker, if anybody is under the delusion that others don't pay for their health system, I would ask them to simply look at the budgets of those other provinces.
Right.
While their buddies in Ontario may have removed the premiums, what they did instead was put on a payroll tax, which puts all the cost of that health care system onto the employers. We believe that Albertans want a share in the health system that they treasure. That's why there was a Premier's Commission in part. It was to assess how important health is in this province. And asking Albertans to pay an additional $3.25 per month for coverage on that plan is a move that we believe is appropriate and reasonable.
Mr. Speaker, we haven't even debated the Premier's Commission report. How on earth are we going to be protected against this regressive head tax? It's all very well for us in this House. What about the people who can't afford it, who are less fortunate with the pitiful subsidy? Mr. Speaker, the question is, will the minister now increase the subsidy level, which is at $5,500 for singles and $10,000 for families, to protect people against this regressive head tax?
Mr. Speaker, again, this is not a tax, nor is it regressive. We have about a quarter of the people in this province either paying no premiums at all or a protected rate of premium. If we can get into the issue when we move into the budget, but the scare tactics that the leader, that the member of the opposition is using when they start throwing out that this is two-tiered health care is simply not the case. We are paying a premium which we believe, yes, philosophically it's important to pay as part of our insurance plan for health care, and we're going to continue to levy them because it in fact links an awareness directly into a health care plan, into a specific fund, not general revenue, in order that Albertans have an understanding of how precious, yet how growing and costly this system is. It's an appropriate move, Mr. Speaker.
Might we revert briefly to the introduction of special guests? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Minister of Advanced Education, followed by the Minister of Economic Development and Trade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am very pleased to introduce to you, sir, and to members of the Assembly Mr. Terry Cavanaugh, the former mayor of this great capital city, who is now teaching a class of journalism students at Grant McEwen College here in the city. He has, as I understand, 40 of his journalism students with him. They are seated in the public gallery, and I would ask, Mr. Speaker, they rise and receive the warm welcome of this assembly.
Economic Development and Trade, followed by Edmonton Avonmore.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure, sir, to introduce to you and through you to members of the Legislative Assembly a group of students from the Pine Street School in Sherwood Park. They're joined by their teacher, Mr. David Harvey, and another couple of dear friends, Mrs. Jan Bradley and Mr. Don Chapman, and I would ask if they would all rise and receive the warm welcome of this Legislative Assembly.
Edmonton Avonmore would like to try again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my pleasure once again to introduce to you and through you to the members of this assembly 10 students from the Heritage School, which is in the constituency of Edmonton Avonmore. They are accompanied by their teacher, Mr. George Hurlak, and a program aide, Jane Woodbury. I would ask that they please rise and accept the warm welcome of this assembly.
Orders of the day.
Government motions. Motion number 6, adjourn debate. Mr. Martin.
Realistic rate.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's always a privilege to reply to the Honorable Treasurer's budget speech, Mr. Speaker, and I always want to be positive at the start.